Unfortunately for me, uh, like right after my stream yesterday, my computer just kind of died out. So I gotta take it in to go get looked at. Until then, I'm working on a small laptop that I have. So I don't have like the audio in the background and stuff. It's mostly just it's gonna be like the bare minimum as I can do for right now. But as it were, let's talk about the new chapter. We're going to talk about the new stuff that went down and where things are going. Because one of my one of my prayers was answered. One of my things that I was really hoping for coming out of this ended up coming true. So, as it were, when we were left off, Zeno had pretty much just mauled the Golden Dawn, beat them all, destroyed their base, took their captain, left like bloodied with a sword embedded in his chest, and just all around massacred. And when Ralph shows up, he sees just in this or like completely battered state. And one thing to note that I brought it up at the end of the last chapter. I know a lot of people mentioned it is was not dead, even though he was beaten to hell. But you could see his grimoire on the ground at that last panel, so you know that he's still alive. Because if his grimoire's still there, he's still alive. That's something known in Black Clover. When they die, their grimoire disappears with them. But once Ralph gets there, he sees like all these trees come up, and it looks like a spell cast like before Willie McLeod. He uses budding of Yggdrasil that healed everybody that was still alive left within the Golden Dawn. So they were able to get back up. And when I mentioned the thing that I was praying for, the thing that I really wanted to happen was Klaus to survive. And I knew Una was going to be alive. I mean, that much again. There was no way Una was going to die. I mean, that would have been really, really weird of a writing decision to kill Una off. Because then it'd be like, well, then who's Ox's rival now? Who's going to keep pushing him and like keep getting him further throughout the story? But Klaus ended up living. I was very happy about that. I've mentioned that the reason I want Klaus to live so bad is when becomes captain, I want Klaus to be his vice captain because out of all the characters that were, very against like Asta and for being peasants, being magic knights and whatnot, Klaus was the first one to kind of, see the error of his ways and, start respecting them. Oh, I just got my picture all messed up. I got that. There we go. Again, this is like I'm makeshifting like my entire setup. Like I just did it really quick and the best that I could. All of my images and stuff are on my computer, so I'm just working out this laptop. But uh, Latoile and Klaus are still alive. Glad Klaus is alive. Even though that some of the Golden Dawn members were saved, the ones that were already pretty much just dead were gone. And they talk about how half of them are in fact wiped out. Half of them have been massacred. Now, this is obviously a sad thing. This is very unfortunate for the Golden Dawn and all these members who, even though the characters that we didn't really care for, someone like, come on, I mean, he had the glass magic, a cool magic, but it's not like he was ever really relevant in the story. He was existent since like all the way back when they had like the whole award ceremony, right when the Eye of the Midnight Sun invaded the capital. But he never really amounted to anything. But you have to keep this in mind, even though us as readers like could see like these characters and be like, oh, we don't care. From the perspective of the characters in the series, like and Klaus and all them, someone like come on, they could have a much better knowledge of really kind of understanding. It's like if you just read somewhere like, oh yeah, somebody died at some factory. It's like, oh, that sucks. I don't really know who that is, but that's unfortunate. Versus somebody who actually knew them, that worked beside them. From their perspective, it's much worse. That's why just raging out, yelling out at the sun, which while talking to people, like I was mentioning that it was like a nice nod at like Asta after he lost his arms, like in the Vito fight, and he was like looking out at the moon. And you have looking out at the sun, just that kind of like mirrored parallel effects, which is really cool and further just makes their characters more feeling love that duality. Like there's always going to be like that opposite end kind of like layer to them. Because similar to how, or I guess really the opposite of how Asuka got right after the time skip of gotten to be this very powerful hero, save all these people. Was defeated, humiliated, and lost all these people in the process. And I think the fact, the Golden Dawn, the image of the sun, of the rising sun, in this case, with the way that the sun is positioned as well here, is just in that like painful nod on top of it. Though I would say, from a writing standpoint, and I know there's a lot of Black Clover fans that would agree with me on this, from the standpoint of Yuno as a character, this is a good thing because there's a lot of people that really like act like Yuno is like some no emotion, boring, like perfect character, like he's some Gary Stu with no problems or anything, which is a lie. And it's not one of those things that it's like super obvious throughout the story of like his emotions because he's supposed to be the opposite of Asta. Asta is very like he's very emotional, very energetic, very whereas Una was very calm, very self-kept, very just, he really just had a couple people he interacted with, like, that he liked talking to, and then everyone else was just this normal, still-minded, like, emotions. Like, anytime we saw Asta, he was very, he would break away from that, almost no emotions, always calm persona, and he'd, like, mess with Asta, and he'd be more, he would have more personality to him. And then we saw when he fought Rill, he started to break out of that shell. And then as we see, like with these guys, he started to become really close to them. And he's just lost some of them and had like that utter and like complete defeat that rattles him to his soul, which just shows his emotions. It reminds me of it was a couple of chapters ago, I think it was like what 2 chapters ago with Barryto, and people were saying that like Wendy was like a Mary Sue because like how talented she is, but then you have like in that same chapter, she's like talking about how she was like really upset of how wrong she was, how powerful she'd become, and it was like no, no Mary Sue, Gary Stu would ever feel like these emotions of defeat and like self-loathing and just like in this one chapter really shows it. He just like no, if he was some Gary Stu, it'd be the same thing. It would be like, oh, well, this is going to get me down. I'm going to become stronger, and this is just a minor inconvenience or something where it didn't really affect the character. It just made them more powerful. And in the way it can be, but it's because of the suffering, the despair, the agony that he's facing. It's like the same thing with Wendy. You can't have any of these characters feel this level of like pain towards themselves, towards their own weakness. Like he's like saying, if only I'd been stronger, I could have prevented this. And that's the same thing with Wendy. You had all these characters who they were upset with their own faults and their own like shortcomings, and you can't have someone be, a Mary Sue or a Gary Stu with stuff like that, especially when they themselves notice it. It doesn't work that way. But after that point, we have Vanica, who's going over to the Heart Kingdom. She wants to go after Laura Pachika. And she's brought her own Dark Disciples who, I don't know about these guys. I mean, we can only see the designs partially of two of them. One of them looks kind of cool, the guy who has like the cross shape on his clothing, but I don't know. The Dark Disciples, I still think until after like this first wave, we're gonna just get like throwaway versions of them. Cause I don't know. I just think that these are gonna be the like with Godroys and Poils. These are the example guys of characters that when they step out, we'll get like here like one of the Spirit Guardians just trash them, and it's just to show how powerful they are. These guys aren't supposed to be memorable. They're supposed to just be measuring stick characters to say how strong these other guys are. But Vanica seems excited. She's saying like, "Oh, we don't have to do anything involving, bring back arcane stage mages." Which I did a video on that, just kind of theorizing. We talked about it in a little bit in my stream yesterday. But the idea of, you know, why exactly are they gathering these arcane stage wizards? My theory is that they're gathering them to use as vessels for more devils, which would be I think would be a huge like extra plot point than it just being like, oh, they've got these devils that are just going to conquer these other countries and take over. It's like, oh no, they're conquering for a reason. It's not just to have dominance. It's this larger scale devil plan, something that's more attuned to the Devil Realm and all these other ones that would, I think, not only be really cool just from a standpoint of it'd be really interesting, but it'd also it would lead into more information about the devils, more about this other realm, and possibly get a number of how many there are, their hierarchy. We know from the word devil that they have a set position. There is a pecking order, as he said. There is a set stage set of them. So I'm guessing they're going to have like a king. We'll probably find out stuff like that where it's one of those standards, maybe a king or queen, devil, somebody that just rules over them. Actually, you know what? Maybe we should go emperor or something even cooler, or like a czar, a tyrant, some form of absolute like peak character of them that just dominates over all of them. That will be like the end game for Black Clover. That'd be really cool. And then like we figure out who they are, just as like a hint. And maybe after this one, we go into other continents, and then we start dabbling in other realms, and this character starts to become more relevant. I don't know. We'll see. It's just it's a theory right there. Right now, I'm looking at Manica. It looks like she's brought 5 of her dark disciples with her. You can see 2, and then the arm of one, and then the silhouette of 2 others, maybe more. Who knows? I think they're going to need it with like the with Spirit Guardians. When we were talking about it in the stream yesterday, I was kind of like, I don't know how well they're going to really contend against the Manic and all these guys, but they have brought up a good point that they have all 5 Spirit Guardians. And like Austin stuff, they got Austin, Noel, Mimosa, Finral, Sekri, and all that. They got a lot of the main cast kind of characters. I think though it's the Spirit Guardians that are going to be like bigger contenders. I mean, we already know that Gaja is already really powerful, and we don't know about like where the others compare, but I can see them like stalemating since they have all 5 Spirit Guardians. And then at the end of the chapter, we get Dante. And Dante's whole discussion with this like crystal wall is one of the things that gets me really curious about. Like, is he working toward like with other devils? Is it Megicula just have the sights set on his own things? Like, is it just for himself? Because Lord Devil's plan was mostly just about himself, and Megicula being seemingly more intelligent. So like, he's not just like some devil like on the run. He's ruling a entire kingdom. So I think he's going to be emphasized at being more of like a smart guy. Because the Lord Devil was more of like this more classical evil kind of guy. He liked the suffering of people. He liked to cause agony, like the mess of people's heads, just to show that he's superior. Whereas I think Megicula will be more of like a tactician kind of character, to where before we end up ever seeing wind up seeing them fighting, Megicula will be more of just like setting the stage, like playing a game of chess with all these characters. But Dante's like talking about all the aspects about humans and like how humanity's true nature is evil. And he's like, because of that, the world is boring for us. And then he's like, I suppose I'm going to go out there and do stuff. So I'm looking forward to seeing this other arcane stage person, Yami. And we did get a hint that Yami was arcane prior to this, like way back when the stages were being introduced by Loro. The thing though that's very interesting about this is one, when he's talking about like when he's talking about humans, and he's like when he's like talking about the nature of humans are like, oh, it's boring, it's a boring world for us. It makes me think 2 things, because one, we see from the speech, it seems like he's like doesn't seem to be human a little bit. He doesn't seem to be talking about being human. Maybe it's because he's got the devil powers. He sees himself as something more, or he's a different species. But one thing to note is he's floating in the chapter, and that leads down another kind of like 2 paths in my mind, because there's a possibility that similar to Licht, who just had that density of mana around him where he could fly, or has something to do with this grimoire. And it was noted that if you've read Tabata's previous series, Hungry Joker, the main character Hage had this apple. He had I think it was what Newton's apple that let him control gravity, and the mark that was on the apple was the same mark that is on Dante's head. So it's either he's not human, and we could get something kind of like how the Clover has the elves, the spade might have be where or the dwarves might be where the Diamond Kingdom, or sorry, the Diamond Kingdom might be where the dwarves are from, and maybe the spade will have something else. Maybe they'll have like vampires or something. I'm just trying to think of like some other weird species. But as it were, we got some mystery coming up, and unfortunately for us, Black Clover seems to be on break next week, which is understandable. Tabata works really hard. He very rarely takes breaks. I mean, most of the time he takes breaks, it's if the magazine itself is on break. Other than that, it's be like he's sick or some emergency. I just imagine that he needed a rest. Yeah, he probably was just a little exhausted, which is fine. But one thing also extra to note is it says 12 pages, or 12 pages, 12 days until the next one, which means the chapters after this next week are going to be early, which is going to be really cool. Actually, I'm looking forward to that. But other than that, comment below. Tell me what your thoughts are about this chapter. Tell me your thoughts about everything coming up. I I'm really looking forward to finding out what exactly is going to be like. One, Dante's magic. What is he talking about with humans? What is his plan? But Vanica's display, I think, will be really cool as well. Dante's and Yami's has me most curious because it's post time skip Yami, And with William, I didn't expect anything because William isn't nearly as much as a prominent character. And Yami's like the second most popular in the series, only below Asta. And it'll be a very weird fight because you have a very popular character who's very powerful, character who, as at the end before the 6 months we saw, got stronger with unlocking Mana Zone, and obviously is going to be much stronger after the time skip. I I think it'll be a big fight. I think it'll be kind of like Julius versus Patriot, where it's going to be an all-out battle where he'll lose, but it'll be an amazing display before that. But other than that, comment below. Tell me your thoughts about the chapter. Tell me your thoughts about everything. I'm just going to do Black Clover. I got an appointment to look at. You see my computer get looked at. I'm hoping it's only the power supply. It's only like $100 fix. Put in a new power supply, and then hopefully it'll work, and then I could get the rest of the videos all get a couple uploaded today, get the rest tomorrow, and get prepped up for the other videos coming out this week. It's frustrating on multiple fronts. I think you can imagine a computer breaking is not just like for YouTube properties. It was just frustrating in general. So looking, I really got my fingers crossed on that one. And other than that, looking forward to the next chapters. Hopefully, I can get this 12-day wait. And I'd really appreciate a thumbs up the video, but from the like button, subscribe button, and check out my other videos. But I appreciate everyone who's already subscribed. And thank you all for listening. Bye.